Welcome, everyone, to the 2018 Voices Conference. We are in our last session, and as usual, we save the best for last. We have a very prestigious panel of women in product innovation. We always argue that it's really not realistic to have half of the population innovating products. And this is a panel who definitely bucks the trend and is in the trenches of innovation, and a prime reason why women should be in the innovation seat. So I am going to introduce our esteemed panelists. First, we have Claudia Galvan. She is in early stage innovation. Claudia and I have known each other for quite some time. She's done various and assorted things. She's very involved with SWE, and I'm sure she'll talk more about that. She is our moderator for today. We have Monica Shen-Knotz. Monica is the Director of Strategy and Alignment over at Cisco. Then we have on the phone the mystery person, Minnie Walias, Minnie Walia, sorry. She is a Senior Director over at VMware, and she is calling in for this panel. And then we have Jin Zhang, who's in product management over at Amazon, one of my favorite places to shop. And then lastly, we have Devika Chawla, who is the Director of Engineering. And you know what? I made a horrible mistake. Devika, what company are you with?
With Netflix.
Netflix, one of my favorite places to watch movies and everything else. So great. Thank you so much, all of you, for being part of this session, being the last session of the conference. This is really exciting to have this discussion. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, they can use the chat, which is at the bottom of your screen, to ask questions, and I'll be feeding those over to Claudia. And then we can also answer some questions at the end. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you to the panel for being here, and all of you around the world. We're very excited to be here. When we first started to think about this panel, innovation and diversity are the two most overused words nowadays. Then why not? We should talk about innovation and women in innovation today. Then let's start with some questions. Clayton Christensen in the Innovator's Dilemma talks about the techniques that worked well in the past fail when applied to new markets. Then, Jean, what are the major obstacles to product innovation in large companies?
Thank you, Claudia. So this is Jean here. I felt quite passionate about figuring out big obstacles as large companies trying to innovate, because I felt the setting is really different from smaller companies, from particular, whether it's emerging and all that. Because for large companies, they have existing customer commitments. They have a brand reputation that they have to protect. And therefore, I put myself into that experience by working on Accelerator for a very large company, CA Technologies, for a few years, just to get a feel. The one thing I can share here, and I would love to have the panelists chime in with their perspective, is I think it's especially hard to innovate in large company, because being a large company, you want too much. Your scope is too big. What I mean by that is any company, as they go through an innovative idea, they tend to think about all of their customers. They tend to think about all different business units inside a large company. And because of that, your scope keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you run into more and more conflict, right, in how to solve the issue, because you don't have a good solution that may be perfect for every use case, every scenario. And in that case, you became nobody's important project, and that will quickly get, this team sort of lose the steam, lose the credibility. So the biggest obstacle I've seen so far is you really cannot think about your innovation start with enterprise grade. That simply does not happen. Let's hear from other panelists for their additional perspective here.
Yeah, I think, I've seen this too. I think, to add to what Jin said, the impact is much higher, the stakes are much higher, right? And so you already have an existing base of customers and you're always worried about impacting them. So that is always something that's at the back of your mind that might get in the way of innovation and moving quickly. Other things I've observed when working with bigger companies are that there's just too many people, and we try to compensate with a lot of process, right? And process changes, decision making changes. They all seem to get bottlenecked, and people don't have the same kind of freedom as they would in a small company to move fast and move quickly. And that's a big thing that also gets in the way. The other thing is there's a lot of exciting innovation that happens when people from different backgrounds and different scope and different verticals talk together and talk to each other. And as the companies get bigger, these silos develop. And so that also limits the kind of innovation we're able to do, because of the size and because of those distances that appear because the companies are getting bigger.
Thank you, Devika. Then there's a lot of obstacles from going from a very large scope, too many people, too many processes. However, we are in the age of agile. Then when time to market is becoming faster and faster, then in this environment, you are struggling with this product innovation, and there's this tension. Then from your perspective, what is the silver bullet in large companies to stay nimble and innovative? Minnie?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Claudia. And I think tied to, what Jen and Devika were sharing, in terms of a silver bullet, I don't think there is one particular that, we can say that you anchor around this process or this way. However, few things that, given sort of my experience from having worked at, two of the bigger companies, currently I'm at VMware and prior to that at Cisco, I think the opportunity for talent and groups to incubate sort of, smaller teams where the decision making is much faster. And also from a portfolio perspective, if there is ways to provide investments so the teams can innovate on a smaller scale. But also, I think I would like to tie to what Jen had mentioned earlier. When we try to do everything for everybody, and especially in big companies, you have a huge enterprise like large base. From an innovation perspective, sometimes that's not easy to scale for. And given the time to market, you may not be able to even deliver faster for all. So you have to sort of gate your innovation with a smaller select set of customers, sort of like data or some of the other key customers, and then try to go broad. One of the other aspect I do want to touch on is bigger companies, sometimes it's very easy to lose sight of the customer, like the outside in perspective. So the customer centricity for what the customer truly wants and what we need to incubate around, I think that should be kept front and center. And I'm, kind of happy to hear Monica or Jen's thoughts on this.
Sure, I'll jump in. So I'm Monica Shenotz, and as Deanna and Claudia said earlier, I'm a director at Cisco Systems, and I'm chief of staff to the enterprise networking CTO, and I help to run the innovation lab. And what that means is the rest of my team they're all deep technologists who do research in various areas that are just a little bit ahead of the business so that we'll be ready for them when the business gets to the point of developing that kind of research into product. And I'm the one business person on the team who's looking at things and seeing, how can we make money out of this? And so working in a CTO team, you get exposed to so many of the different innovation groups. And, one of the challenges that Minnie was talking about was trying to be able to move faster. And one of the other problems that large companies run into is that there are lots of groups trying to move quickly. And there's so many different groups that you can step on each other. So maybe there's a chief technology office that's doing a lot of proofs of concept. And maybe, so what Cisco has those, and also innovation centers that are scattered around the world, say in Berlin, in Paris, and in the United States, that will really incubate with startups and do early stage investment like that. And there's a lot of great work that's happening there. And then also what's super important is to have innovation groups that are embedded right within engineering. And that's important to both have product move quickly and also for morale, because everyone wants to be part of a group that's creating new stuff. So there'll be all these different organizations. And so, I don't know that there's a silver bullet, but because I guess, we're trying to grow things rather than kill things. So, a silver flower pot maybe, is to really communicate. And I can't overemphasize how much how important it is to communicate between these different groups, because what we find is there's so many great synergies between this researcher here and this person in the other part of the company, and that's a great danger in a larger company, is that you won't hear about what's going on in all these different teams. And so we try to have a lot of these cross-group, at least virtual teams or calls periodically, so that we know what's going on and can share as much information as we can.
Thank you, Monica.
Claudia, can I add a story here related to what Monica and Minnie just talked about? Yeah, so I love the silver water pot idea, right? Trying to get growth happen. Also keep in mind that as we try to grow and focus on a particular idea, right? Like Minnie was talking about earlier, you cannot lose sight of the additional supporting functions. What I mean by that is, when you usually start with an idea, you would want to be customer centric, which is something Amazon is, big deal about, right? You have to discover and detect that true customer problem you want to solve. From there, you naturally come to discussions involving people like me, right? A product builder. What kind of product should we build? How do we solve that problem? And you naturally then go to engineers. However, what I will share though is, if you think about a new product, right, a new innovation, you will not be successful if you only have these key elements. You need that sales effort. Whether the sales job is done by the CEO, by the founder, or by dedicated sales team, right, that particular aspect cannot be overlooked. And that can easily happen when you're in a larger enterprise. Why? Because in a smaller startup, the founder, the co-founder, or their first salesperson, that's all they're motivated to do. They're going to be super dedicated on that. But in larger company, what likely happen is you will not have the sales support yet your team is thinking, well, I need to get this product ready so that the sales team can take it on, right? So one example I would share, where I am here in Silicon Valley, we have a pretty famous mentor and a very known, passionate teacher in this field. His name is Steve Blank, and he specifically teaches at multiple, top universities about innovation in large enterprises. And I've had the opportunity to debate with him in one of the meetups that he came to support in the area, right? I described the situation. I talked about, the progress we've made. We talked about how we did the discovery of the problem and the progress of the agile approach we've done development. Then he looked at me and he says, "You need dedicated sales." I was like, "No, I'm not going to be able to have dedicated sales because that's our rule of book, according to my VC and my angel investors inside the large company." He's like, "You think about it, Jin, what motivates the sales team, right? When they don't carry the quota for your innovative product, when you don't have the capacity or the extra bandwidth to deal with it, without sales, you will not get the proof that this innovation is actually ready to be productized and ready to go." So just to add this little story to the discussion we had so far, you may be looking at the customer-centric approach. You may be looking at the overall, key processes, but don't forget about some of these critical supporting functions that does not come naturally when you build your very first innovation team.
Thank you, Jean. This was very interesting, thinking about it in a very company-wide way, that, the silver bullet is actually getting everybody involved, incubating those ideas, having the support systems to take them to market. And it's interesting you mentioned about Stephen Blank, because, he's so well known in the Valley. And, and I was thinking about something that he said, because I actually consult with a lot of startups. And I used a quote from Stephen Blank about that small companies are not a small version of a large company, and they operate very, very differently. And hearing about the challenges about driving innovation in big companies, and how the differences are with the small companies is just so applicable. And really appreciate you guys your point of view. Then, innovation, especially here in Silicon Valley, it feels that it's all happening all around us. There is so much energy nowadays, and it's just such an exciting time to be here. Then, what disruptive technology trends are impacting the product innovation in your companies right now, and how are you reacting to that? Emily, our mystery caller, answering.
Sorry, Claudia, were you asking me or Monica? Sorry, I missed that.
I'm asking you first and then Monica.
Okay. So this is regarding little bit of, sort of from a personal innovation experience, right?
No, basically what the disruptive technologies that are affecting your, innovation in your company and how you guys are reacting.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Thanks, Claudia. For some reason, my audio, and sorry guys, I'm the mystery caller who's had video issues, and there seems to be a little bit of an audio hiccup, but hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So definitely, so let me share something from a perspective of my current role. So in my current role at VMware, the team I lead, it's called business readiness. So it's go-to-market business readiness. And what we do is the team cross-functionally leads everything, all aspects of business readiness for all new products or services that are getting launched in the company. So we work, if you were to look at it from a portfolio perspective as well as the maturity curve of the product. So these would be products that go all the way from sort of like future bets, incubate products, to mature products, or even the entire life cycle management, which is the end of life. Now, one of the things when we look at the disruptive, trends that are happening, VMware as a company, natively, a lot of the stuff that we did, claim to fame is all the virtualization stuff, you were not natively born in the cloud. 85 or 90% of the portfolio is still on-prem, right? So that's kind of where most of our customer base and all of the millions of workloads are. So when you look at from a disruption or, in terms of the trend that you're going after, how do you make your story that is cloud relevant? What's your strategy around, private clouds to public clouds, the hybrid cloud part of it? So some of these things, 2 years back, we were on the journey, and I think Jen can relate to it. Jen's current role, I think she's working on the VMC on AWS stuff, which is sort of the joint, thing with between Amazon and VMware. So when you start to look at that, the mindset of most of the team, including some of the functions that Jim was talking about, whether you look at sales, customer success, operations, everything is anchored around processes, people, as well as talent, anchored around on-prem. Being able to do things, some of it was waterfall, some agile, but primarily on-prem. So how do you take a lot of that and how do you innovate for something that you are going to release most of the cloud offerings, the SaaS work? So that is one of the sort of, trends or the current stuff that we are seeing. But in the last 2 years, that's a journey that VMware has been on, is how to take some of these products and make them relevant for the cloud. So if that helps, kind of give a perspective.
Great, thank you. And Monica, would you like to add something?
Sure, I would love to. So there are various technology trends that I think everyone is seeing, like everything has moved to cloud and we're dipping into machine learning virtually everywhere. But I think the one that has sort of, I've noticed the most recently is this really mindset in terms of speed. And some of it is agile software development, but the delivery side is the part that's fascinating me right now, which is all these products that are continuous delivery. And it started more with consumer, but you're starting to see that much more with enterprise now. And that's just fascinating. what it takes, the kind of metrics you can get in terms of who has implemented, what page did they get to in the login before they quit because it's too frustrating. I mean, we can adjust for, just GUIs and adjust all sorts of things immediately based on that kind of data and metrics. And it's just a world better than the bad old days when you weren't actually even sure who was using what features on your product. You kind of had to guess based on the bugs that customers filed. And so I feel like that has changed. And for the larger companies that have been around a long time, switching over can be hard. You're used to doing product development a certain way, and that takes, it can be done and it must be done, but it takes a lot of focus to do that. So I'm very heartened by seeing how much we see enterprises moving towards being able to do much faster development and then also much faster reaction to customers.
I wanted to add something to that as well. So as you guys know, I work with Netflix, and I'm a director of their messaging and customer contact platforms and engineering teams. And messaging is reaching out to our members worldwide. So Netflix is all over the world. The product is available, and we are sending personalized messages to people when there's new shows that we'd love them to watch, or continuations of previous shows or previous movies. And essentially we're touching a lot of members. And all of our messaging experiences are the result of a lot of A/B testing. And I think A/B testing is one very, one very awesome technique to add to our tool set for being able to innovate fast and move fast and learn fast. So to add to what Monica was saying, there's a lot of emphasis on data and insights, and really A/B testing builds on top of that and leverages a lot of those data and insights. But the idea there is that we want to be able to understand how people are responding and reacting to these various experiences, and we want to learn through the data that we're getting, and that's how we're really shaping our product and growing our product. And so that's been a really valuable construct in how we've done a lot of product innovation at Netflix.
Hey, Devika, last time we talked, I was saying I hope that Robin Wright would take over House of Cards. And I don't know if you were A/B testing that, but, thanks for helping to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new season. So, yeah. I don't know if you guys caught the ad that was at the Oscars, which is really fun. Yeah.
It's a good ad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not affiliated with Netflix, so it's not a Netflix commercial. I just wanted to say I thought that was cool.
I know. Well, I love this discussion and all the cross-pollination because, we are all in different companies in Silicon Valley and getting everybody's perspective on what everybody's doing about innovation is just amazing. Then basically, we're living in, as we talked about it, we're living in this very exciting place in Silicon Valley, with all the technology and innovation happening around us. However, and with the theme of Women's History Month and, Women's International Day, then why do you guys think that women don't consider themselves innovative? And what advice would you give them to get started? And Devika, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know why there's that myth or that fear that we can't innovate for some reason. I think for me personally, I just feel like I want to know so much, and I think it can be overwhelming to feel that you can know everything perfectly. And I think that may be what sort of holds us back from making small progress. And so my recent transition has been to really think in terms of bite-sized innovation and trying small things and small ideas and tapping into things that we're passionate about or themes that I'm personally passionate about, and seeing if we can explore and build something small or learn something small or something simple and something new. And so using that as a guideline, I think it's not so overwhelming, and it can be more manageable, and you can kind of really make that happen more realistically. So that's something that's been really fun, bite-sized innovation and bite-sized learning.
And that is trademark of the Vika, bite-sized innovation. I love it. Thank you. All right. And Jean, would you like to jump in?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Minnie. I was just going to say, I love the Vika's bite-sized innovation idea, right? And if I can go back and think, why is it, right? Because Claudia, you raised a point that's both so true, almost to a painful way, but also it's something we're here to, we all have a chance in changing that. That's why all of us are gathering here on this webinar together to talk about women in innovation, right? There is that perception out there about, women is not good about innovation. And I think sometimes that may even be a self-reflection on our own. So as I think about it, right, I also thought about the danger of being a perfectionist. And that's very relevant for what Devika was talking about, right? Bite size means you don't have to have the most earth-shattering idea that is literally going to be launching the rocket, right? You don't have to get to that point. Keep it at a bite. But at the same time, you also know this bite is okay not to be so perfect. In Amazon, we have a very positive term, a word that we call scrappy. We want to be scrappy about our innovation. That means we did not follow, we did not focus on thoroughness. We did not focus on, as I earlier said, every use case under the sun. We may be doing one thing, tiny, but that's absolutely bring the delight to exactly that one customer who runs into that one thing. And that we think is a great starting point. So that really made me think, a lot of us, before we speak up, especially in a very intimidating large enterprise, a lot of people fill the room. How many of us actually were thinking, what is going to be the reaction as soon as I said this? Mm-hmm. Are people going to hear me? Are people going to critique? Are people going to, have the first reaction of throwing dots at it? I would say if you kind of just leave this on the back and thinking you'll deal with it if it happens, then hopefully more of us will be up forward, bring out our ideas. And that is actually super important, because by doing so, we are changing the perception of people around us, but also our self-reflection on, can we generate new ideas? Does our thoughts carry weight here? And I think that's a wonderful start to start change the perception of women are not as innovative.
Thank you, Jean. And I definitely want to go to Minnie, to our mystery caller, but I wanted just to summarize these like self-imposed restrictions that women have about how the idea will be perceived, and that it has to be perfect. And I think this is one of our own, basically our own barriers that we set up ourselves, and that's so powerful. And also that we don't have to basically feel the whole world. We basically have to fix the whole world. It has to be it can be something as small, right, as a big-size piece that gets implemented. Then really appreciate those comments. Thank you. Then Minnie, would you like to add in?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Claudia. And I think, in terms of what Devika and Jin just shared, totally sort of aligned to that. And I wanted to add a little bit of, another dimension to this. So if you were to look at it in terms of sort of, the roles we are in, and where I also feel we can help sort of the talent from an inclusivity perspective, I would encourage us all to, watch out for, like, as teams are being formed, do the teams have the right mix where women have sort of a role or a place to be able to sort of, either bring their bite-sized, innovative stuff, or raise the hand, be able to express a viewpoint. So from that perspective, from a diversity and inclusion, in terms of, talent, we can definitely watch out for some of these things and help the women talent to sort of be more included in, whether it is, as part of the interview panels, interview list of people, or in project team settings. So that may be sort of another way to kind of, encourage or be, enable a mechanism for women to be part of an innovative structure and be able to put their viewpoints forward.
Then, Monica or Devika, would you like to ask this question?
I have a thought on this too, and I just, piggybacking on what Minnie said. So we have patent-a-thons and hackathons and demo days and things like that. And one thing we can do as, both as organizers and advisors is that make sure that the marketing for these events doesn't turn off women. Like sometimes hackathons that are, so we're looking for hardcore rock star ninjas. And, and sometimes that might not be appealing to, or it might scare away some people saying, well, I don't know if am I a hardcore rock star ninja? Or, so try to be more like looking for people, like maybe you have one set of posters that says that, but you also have a set of marketing that goes out and says, hey, do you have a cool new idea? Like try to think of different ways to hold your innovation events in a way that's inviting to lots of different kinds of people.
Thank you, Monica.
And Monica, you just gave me another idea, if I can throw this in. I think besides our marketing material, make sure that's open to women, right? For ourselves, we also need to think about leveraging our strengths. So I actually learned about this from going to an innovation presentation many years ago, and that sort of opened up my point of view. At the time, I was an engineering leader, and when I talk about innovation, I was strictly thinking about one thing and one thing only: technology patents, right? Nothing else counts. Walk into this conference, into this session, and the presenter says, let's brainstorm what are considered innovation. And he actually outlined 3 categories: technology innovation, product innovation, and process innovation, mechanism innovation, right? So if you think about it here, some of these leverage women's strengths extremely well, where we have this ability to relate, we have the empathy to understand user or customer's pain and their need. We are super organized. We have the sense to figure out where are the bottlenecks so we can make the entire process much more smooth. Now, a lot of these could be generalized stereotypes, but they do reflect some of our strengths. And a lot of times I felt like if we don't close the door on ourselves too soon, right, with a, hackathon invitation, guess what? Don't easily discount that to say that was not me. Ask yourself one more time, can I go in and learn something about it? Do I possibly have an idea that's related to what they're talking about? After all, they're talking about financial technology, and I've been in there for, 20 years. See, these kind of thought process give us a new chance to open those doors before they're closed too soon. So thank you, Monica. You triggered another thought in my mind here.
This is fun when we get to talk with each other too.
Anybody wants to add?
Well, there are a couple of just personal experiences that I think would be fun to share, but I feel like I was just talking. So if there's anyone else who wants to go first, or otherwise I will.
Go for it, Monica. We want to hear your story.
Well, innovation, we were just talking about a moment ago with Jen, there's so many different directions to take it. And so I'll give one example from my Chief Technology Office experience and one from my past as a product manager. And the first one, the technology office often incubates something that's new. So an example was the digital ceiling, so it's connected lighting. Was the concept. And the idea was, well, we've got sensors all over the place. Why can't we hook up building sensors for light bulbs and heat sensors and temperature sensors and stuff like that to the network, just like everything else is, and control it in one place instead of having separate controls for everything in the building. And as you can imagine, this can be quite substantially cost savings. So the technology got worked out. And it was like, oh, this is technically possible. This actually works really well. And we helped the group. We incubated the group for the time that it took to actually work the other stuff out, which ended up being way harder, which was we had to help build some partnerships with outside vendors, like smart light bulb manufacturers, for example, right? It's like, never thought I would be in the light bulb business, but like you have to work that out. And how do you go to market with these things? And what partners do we need to work with? So really the go-to-market innovation was probably even bigger than the original technical innovation in the first place. And eventually we built up enough of these ties that this project that we incubated, and was somebody's crazy idea originally, got moved into the business unit where they put money in marketing, engineering, and put it out into the world. So that was really exciting to see, but also very educational, certainly, to see that how much there was in sort of integrating all the different parts of innovation together to make a product idea. And the other innovation experience I wanted to share was when I was leading a product management team. Our group had this really cool thing. It was actually part of an acquisition that we made. It was their tradition, and we adopted it because it was such a good one. And twice a year, they would have something they called Tech Zone. And all the engineers and other groups as well would prepare demos. And some of them were just crazy things they'd always wanted to try out. Other things were, I really wanted to fix this thing in our product, and I never get a chance because, our sprints never include this, but I'm going to do it for my Tech Zone project. And these various passion projects, got a demo day, and we got to look at them. And as a product manager, I basically went shopping. I would go and walk around and see all these different things, and it was wonderful because you could see, oh wait, I've seen the customer problem that this will solve, and I could match these things. And we turned quite a number of them, not everything, some things were sort of crazy, but we turned a lot of them into product and sold them later, which is fantastic. And then every so often, every 18 months or something like that, we would have a big sort of a showcase beyond just, small demos. And we even one year had a reality show. It was like, so you think you can invent? And they would come up on stage, and I was the host, and I would ask them questions, and there would be a panel of judges. And it was very exciting, again, from a development of technology point of view, but also morale, because it was engineering glory on display, and it made people very excited to keep creating their new ideas. So those are my two experiences that I'll kick off with. Your turn.
I'll take a turn now. That was kind of exciting. So it made me think about some of the longer term innovation process, like systems and just projects that take longer. And so they can start to be very daunting. And I remember when I first joined Netflix, we were really embarking upon building a platform that would let us do A/B testing in a very agile fashion without having to deploy code every single time. So we wanted to move to a config-driven system, but that meant we would be rehauling everything. And that scared everybody. And so, I remember sort of thinking about, well, how do we really make this fun? And how do we kind of move forward on that? And so I think starting out bottoms up with the team and making sure everybody was aligned on the problem we were trying to solve and the goals that we had, and then moving into kind of a more incremental show and tell kind of approach to how we were building things. So we would build small pieces, get some feedback, do some demos, and then move on to the next phase, right? And at the same time, keeping our stakeholders involved and completely part of the workflow, part of the system, so they knew where we were going, and making sure their concerns were addressed was really big part of it. And showing that progress incrementally was really good, because it was a very long project, and you can start to get distracted, or it can start to feel very long and very arduous. So I think having that incremental improvement, milestone-based approach, and then getting more people to see things, more people to play with things, was really, really awesome. And then the final migration to this new platform was also very daunting, because we were moving all our messaging portfolio that we were, we're messaging hundreds of millions of, messages every day. We send messages in over 24 languages, and kind of getting that to be stable and not screw up, because once you send messages out, you can't take them back. Was also very, very kind of something that had to be managed very well and thoughtfully. So I think to kind of my summary was that the innovation is in all these different aspects, right? How you kind of how you talk about the project, how you showcase what you're doing, how you make incremental progress, and how you really communicate and get things to line up together. And that's kind of a big part of seeing the innovation really happen from start to end. So it's much beyond just the ideation or just the idea, but the execution it is also something where you have to be very innovative. So yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah. There is anybody else wants to share their story about their experience innovating from within their company?
Well, I was actually going to add a story to what Devika just mentioned. I think you're right on pointing out it is the execution that also require innovative approach. And it reminded me of something we tried when we were trying to build the accelerators. Now, one thing that's common in IT field is you realize most of the IT technology company, right? They, for the last 10 or 15 years, if you look at the user persona, if you look at the contact points they have inside each one of their customers, that tends to be their IT department, because that's how technology used to be acquired. That's how technology was evaluated, acquired, and then utilized, right? So you have your buyer there, you have your user there, and you keep contacting that group. In fact, even for a bank or for a hospital, right, they would, if they need anything related to technology, they tend to have to raise a ticket to their IT department to get things done. That, however, is changing, right? It's changing in the sense that right now we have, because of the pace of innovation and because of the desire to provide better customer experience, a lot of the business units start to have their own technology elements. What I mean by that is it's probably a smaller size of departmental project. It may be a much smaller instance of a BI engine, but they're doing their own customer sentiment analysis. They're making it much tighter to their product offering. They're hoping to significantly shorten the distance between, the data, the backend cleansing and processing and insight versus the quick changes they can do on their product, on their website, on their promotion, right? Very much like the stories Devika has talked about earlier on, back and forth on Netflix. So when this happens, you will realize that in your innovation, if you continue to think, I need to go talk to the customer and I will go back to the same customer contacts that you've, saved over the years in your Salesforce data, system, that you may be missing an opportunity, right? Because your audience is changing, your user is evolving, and therefore sometimes be really bold about asking folks that's not your traditional interviewees can give you delightful results. And the way I learned that was really the hard way. I was actually talking to people, strangers, through business flights, sitting on the airplane. And by doing that, right, because you don't have a customer call schedule that's happening at the moment, and you're talking to whoever that's sitting next to you, I actually discovered great business opportunity, innovative, application for what I wanted to do, and next step follow-up. And really from there, I was able to open up to say, wow, then if I take that persona and look for the next 20 that's just like this, here's my next batch, right? So it really gives you a different sense to think about the execution, as Devika talked about, not just on each step as you make the product and get it out the door, but even for some of your basic assumptions. Innovation is indeed happening all over the place. So you need to be able to challenge almost every statement you take for granted. Yeah.
Thank you. Monica, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, I was just smiling because I thought it's an excellent focus group, the people around you on the airplane.
Minnie, would you like to add an experience?
Yes.
Of driving innovation within the company?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm going to touch back on something Jin had mentioned earlier and sort of, bring it home a little bit tied to the innovation work. So Jin talked about the key aspect. When you look at products that companies are innovating around, there is an aspect of technology that's sort of a given, right? What are we thinking about? It's in the nascent stage. We are going to sort of do the, alpha builds, sort of like proof of concept. But then there's the rest of the machinery in the company that still has to support things in a basic minimum capacity. What I mean by that is, if you're innovating around a product and you want to take this product to go to market to be able to make a sale, you will need a price point. You will need a SKU. You will need some kind of a sales mechanism to be able to, make a sale. So what we have sort of been, I would say, a little bit of a struggle as well here is when you look at a mature portfolio and when you look at a sales team that is structured around, the core and the specialists selling a lot of the things that makes up the quota, how do you get their attention anchored around something that's a new product? Yes, it's an innovative product, but you know what? Is it worthy enough where the sales team is going to, the quota is driven by this? Probably not in the early stage. So the example that I'm sharing is, which is what currently we are working towards, is we've come up with a process where we are trying to say, if you have something that's in the incubate category, which is real early on, then empowering the business units more. So sort of from a RACI, accountability, like a business unit GM, you would have accountability for the numbers in the early stage. So if you are able to get it to, for example, being in our business, we are saying, let's say you cross the 25 million mark, or it's a 40 million. Then at that point, the product is ready to be transitioned to the core sales team. Till then, it could be a BD-led model, like business development leader, or you could have some of the, sales specialists that are rolling up in the BU. So smaller focused team that can drive the selling also of these innovative products. So that's a little bit of a flavor to, tying it back to what was discussed earlier around the sales aspect. Because that is a key aspect. Otherwise, a lot of these technologies, so right now we're trying to do with, why don't we design fast? And then if things work, that's great. If not, you need to enable a culture that you can fail fast as well, so that you can move on to the next best thing. But a little bit of a challenge is with a lot of these new cloud offerings and, some of the SaaS services, because they're early on in their life cycle, the core sales is not only selling them. So the selling mechanism has to be thought through very differently.
Yeah, that's a great point. I heard somebody. Well,
yeah, so Claudia, I was going to ask, are there any questions coming through on the channel? So since I'm the mystery caller who can't see all of you, I don't know.
So hi everyone. Currently there isn't any questions, but when you get to that point, I have a question for all of you.
Okay.
Well, we're getting to the point where we basically maybe just final thoughts from everybody. Any final thoughts on innovation?
Yeah, it's not a go ahead. So yeah, I was just going to say, we talked about so many different things, but one other important thing is when you're thinking of innovation is what not to do and where to say no, and where to sort of really hedge the bets, because it's important to be thoughtful about where you're investing. So saying no to some things so that you can do other things well and better is as important for innovation in general as it is to say yes to other things. So I think that was the other last thing that I got inspired about as Minnie was talking. I don't know what it was about what she said. I think maybe the fail fast part of it made me think, yes, that is it, that we just have to be good at saying no when we want to make time to invest in the things that are really important.
I have one too, besides just saying yes, that saying no is actually really hard to do, and it takes some good practice and discipline. Mm-hmm. And the other thought I had was, it doesn't have to be your idea. You don't have to be the person who comes up with the idea. Just give credit and help other people's ideas too, because that, I think, it's very inspirational. right? To be working with people that are generating good ideas. And then if you can make it happen, right, that is an accomplishment in yourself. Just, make sure you give credit to everybody who has pitched in along the way.
This is Jen here. I will add one back to the perception and how we hold ourselves all at a very high bar before we even say or do anything. Know that you can, and know that this doesn't have to be earth-shattering, and know that this can come in many forms and formats.
Thank you, Jane. Minnie?
Yeah, I wanted to add a dimension, just looking at it from a team perspective, a little bit of a, flavor to sort of the innovative work. Often it's not as easy given, when you look at even across the company, the shiny objects are few, right? You can't put all people on the next shiny object or sort of the hottest project that's going on. But I think where we can encourage people to, you can look for innovation in aspects that you're doing even with your current work. And I think somebody else touched on a similar aspect, because to keep the teams, motivated, morale, keep the interest and sort of that curiosity going. Innovation can be looked at in pockets of your current work areas, be it process, be it technology, be it systems, tools, so basically there is sort of no limit to where you can look for this, and also encourage teams, as well as applies to all of us too, in our day jobs, look for those opportunities.
Great. Thank you. It seems that innovation is all around us, right? The opportunities are there to create something new. We have to look at innovation in small pieces, and have the ability to fail fast and recover fast. I like the idea of show and tell as you go along the way. And that is all encompassing. It doesn't have to be just the engineering glory, but it can be also about, product and processes, and including from the go-to-market strategy, and basically involving the customer, and as Monica said, going shopping, for ideas, and as Jim said, use your focus groups in the plane. There's like so many different opportunities for us as women to innovate. And that it doesn't have to be a groundbreaking idea. It can be your idea. You can basically build on some of these people's ideas, empower them, and make them, and make them happen. And with that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. Otherwise, I know Diana had some additional questions. And thank you so much, to all our panelists. Connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yes, this has been a fabulous panel. And like Claudia said, if you use the chat, which is the little button at the bottom of the screen, people can ask questions. But one question I wanted to ask of all of you, I'm going to put you kind of on the spot. I work with a lot of women in India and other parts of the world, and I'm often asked, they're not at the hub of innovation. They're not in Silicon Valley. They're not at the mothership. They're not at the main corporate office. And oftentimes women in particular have a difficult time being heard in terms of innovative ideas or having ideas to improve the product. So what would you all recommend that these women do? I know there's a number of women in India who wanted to see this panel, and they will watch this recording and they will be listening for this answer, because they've been asking me all week, and unfortunately this is like really early Saturday morning for them, so they can't be online right now. But if you have some ideas on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, hi Diana, this is Minnie. So I can share a little bit of a perspective, on what you just mentioned. And yeah, I kind of can relate to that, being sort of in some of the, how would I say, sites which are not, headquarter or kind of, where we are, Silicon Valley, it can be hard. But if I were to look at some of what's in place, and I'm speaking from a VMware perspective, things that are in place for collaboration, or you have, tools like there is Slack, Socialcast, internal comms. And we have events like radio, where they take in suggestions for innovative ideas globally. Each region can sort of, get their voice heard, whether it is at an individual level or a team level. So what I would encourage is for people to be aware of everything that is available in a company environment, to be able to provide some of that input, as well as be sort of aware of what are the channels that are available to them to have exposure to that kind of input. Another aspect could be sort of, mentorship. And sometimes mentorship doesn't have to be, live, like in the same region. Kind of be able to reach out to some mentors in the regions where they feel there is more exciting stuff happening, just to kind of have a two-way dialogue, as well as, be able to hear out what are some of the interesting things that are either going on in a particular location, in a region, or what's happening with products in general. So that would be something that, I just wanted to kind of bring forth.
Yeah, I'd plus one that, the last one. So I was actually recently in India at Netflix's Mumbai office. So I went to visit and actually met a lot of people there who are new and have recently joined Netflix. And so we've kind of created some great relationships. And now I'm talking to them in the evening sometimes when they had some ideas and they want to reach out. So I would say, build relationships with people and really kind of make the most of that time. And it's been awesome for me to kind of get more intimate with what's happening there and kind of take that back into what we're doing on the product side, on the messaging side, and just generally speaking. And then the other thing is just, be more be more proactive in reaching out or sharing ideas. And, people do listen and people do read. So, just kind of over communicate and be more sort of aggressive, like in sort of not a pushy bad kind of way, but just, like being more diligent and persistent about some of the ideas that you're really excited about.
And Deanna, I love the fact that you asked this question specifically, for our members and, technology women in India. I've had many business trips there. I have had many teams and team members there, a lot of women in those teams. I will first say these are, there's a new innovation trend forming in some of the areas, right? I know Bangalore is a big one. I know there's a lot going on in Mumbai. In fact, I think some of the e-commerce companies like Flipkart, right? We study them very closely, and I have often been fascinated not only by the innovative idea there, but also by the unique consumption pattern that we don't usually see elsewhere, right? So I definitely think there's tons of opportunity. And if I can add on one specific suggestion, in addition to the great advice from Minnie and Devika here already, that is, if you felt like your voice is not necessarily being heard there, look for a mentor or look for a role model. And you don't have to look far and beyond, right? Look for somebody that's either an architect who's in the team who seems to have that voice of the room, right? When he or she speaks, or look for a role model, in this case, probably a woman that you really admire, that, shares your passion, and this is kind of how you want to be 5-10 years down the road, right? Go talk to these people. Talk to them with your ideas. Talk to them, ask for validation, ask for input, because you're coming in with a very specific topic, right? Rather than just general getting to know each other, they're in a much better position to help you, right? They will help you point out how to, make the idea more comprehensive. They can introduce you to other related people who may be able to answer, the parts where you have question marks in order to complete the issue. And because of doing that, they're naturally keeping this in the back of their mind and finding the right opportunity to advocate for you and make sure your voice is being amplified in those situations. So I really think, for women who are trying to find an opportunity to express their ideas, and if you feel you're struggling by, trying so hard on your own, don't be shy about reaching out, right? You will be amazed about how open people are actually willing to help, whether to be your mentor or informally exchange thoughts on this particular idea, or talk about, being a role model, how they handle this kind of situation, although they are not able to, help you for the particular topic. You will get more things out of that.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank
Monica,
you so
you want
much.
to add?
I'll just add a quick one since we're at the top of the hour. And that is that there's so many excellent communications that usually go out in a company. And it might be the whole company all hands, or it could be something that's more local to your business area. But when your business leaders and engineering leaders take the time out to do a big presentation like that, think about the time they're investing in terms of every engineer in the group listening to something. They should have prepared something really good. And that's typically worth attending and going to find out, if you're a more junior person, to find out what your bosses are thinking. What is the direction of the business? Because that is most likely where there's going to be the money and the time and the interest to support innovation. And that's another way you can keep in touch.
Thank you. And I do want to add something, since I've been driving innovation also in a lot of different companies. And it's that what I've noticed, and we all fall into that issue, is that many times we speak from the top of mind in a meeting, and we have to be very intentional about the ideas that we're going to put forward. And what that means is that you need to basically do a little bit of homework and understand the different moving pieces when you want to basically, put forward an idea, and it starts to build some alliances and basically bounce some of your ideas with people, so that you basically try to get some of the questions answered beforehand. And at the end of the day, basically going through that process, it's just going to put you in a better position to move the idea forward. And and going back to what Monica said, many times it's not about you, but it's about the idea. Then basically, if you get the idea to a point where basically has been adopted, but you're not in a position to execute, then you need to basically pass it over to somebody who can basically execute on that idea. And, then I think in this case, as women, we have still some room to grow and lots of opportunity to move forward. But anyway, Deanna, any more questions that came up?
No, there isn't any more questions, but this has been a fascinating panel, and I know that this is going to be watched hundreds of times by women around the world. And there will be a lot of women getting in contact with you, I am sure, on LinkedIn and wherever else they can find you. So thank you so much for all of the energy preparing for this, your amazing answers, and just really sharing, some really important lessons that you've learned throughout your own career. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. Happy the day after International Women's Day. But this is the close of the 2018 Voices Conference. And what a way to close with a bunch of amazing women and women who are innovating and really taking us to the next level. It's very impressive and very inspiring.
Thank you, Deanna. Congratulations.
Thank you, Deanna. Congratulations.
What a great,
Thank you, everybody.
great week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.